Hello, and welcome to our Sewing Sangha. You'll find a series of videos here on how to make a rakusu in the Soto Zen tradition, and more specifically, in the tradition of Upaya Zen Center and Roshi Joan Halifax's lineage. We'll go through each step in detail to help you create your own rakusu. Now, you might want to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can find it easily again, and click on the notification bell so you'll learn when new videos are posted. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the comments section. We'll do our best to answer them. I'm Cheryl Dyson, and today we'll be going over stitching. We're going to start sewing today. So you'll find links and details in the description below. So let's go to the downward facing camera and get started. All right, we're going to start sewing today. So that's a big milestone. In the last episode, you learned how to measure and cut the strips for the rakusu. And then today we're going to learn about sewing. Now, one of the things I'd like to begin with is something that I feel is very important, and that's your posture. Just like in Zazen, there's a posture that's recommended. As Roshi Joan teaches, we want a strong back and a soft front. With stitching, it's really the same. I'd like to see everyone have a nice relaxed posture and to hold their fabric correctly so that you'll have the greatest success, comfort, and ease. It really helps to create a sense of not only being able to sew beautifully, but to have a sense of enjoyment and even joy. Now, sometimes I've seen people kind of sit up kind of like Whistler's mother, and they're sewing like this with their fabric all kind of bunched up together. And that's really a recipe for having the stitches be uneven and to be uncomfortable. And you'll find your hands kind of cramping up, and you won't be able to sew for a very long stretch at a time. So much better is to keep your arms on the table. You might even prop one foot up. I find that to be very helpful. You can use a yoga brick, or you might have one of those angled footrests under your desk if you do a lot of computer work. And so that way you're able to keep your posture straight and even. Keep your shoulders down, have a nice strong back and a soft front, and be able to hold the fabric so that your stitching is going to be parallel to your body. So one of the things I would remind myself of as I was stitching was to go as a river. So you're going to be stitching along parallel to the body and keeping your stitches straight. Now, one of the things that I didn't talk about in our supplies video is using a thimble. Now, I love to use a thimble. I feel like it really helps, prevent my finger from getting sore from pushing the needle in. You might not want to. There are a lot of people who don't like using a needle, and that's okay too. If you are interested and haven't used a thimble before, there are videos out there. In fact, I'll link to a video on the proper use of a thimble, but you really would need to go to your quilting store or other craft store and try them on. Perhaps the person there would be able to help you to find the proper fit for your thimble. That one size does not fit all, so it's a good thing to check out if that's of interest to you. So one of the things, the first stitch actually that I'll demonstrate here is the running stitch or a basting stitch. You'll be basting pieces when we get to the face and the frame for the face. And it's really the easiest stitch and the most common one that you'll use is that running stitch. Now, you really don't have to mark a straight line, but you can if you want. Because this, again, a basting stitch is something we're going to pull out at the end of the day, because then the stitches will be on top of that. So you can take one of your marking pens that you have. You can use your tailor's chalk or other marking, and then just draw a line, nice straight line. And then I'm using almost a lightweight yarn here with a large embroidery needle, but you'll be using your the thread that you've picked to go with your fabric, perhaps a cotton or a silk or cotton polyester. And so it won't be anywhere near this thick. So, but this is for demonstration so that you can see the large needle and the larger yarn as we stitch along to hopefully be able to demonstrate. So with a running stitch, I'm just going to poke the needle right through the fabric, pull it all the way till I just have a short tail at the end. And I can make several stitches in a row if I like, and they don't have to be super even. It's a nice practice if you like to do it that way. And then just go through. Now I'm going to pull it through with my other hand, which you ordinarily would not do, but I just want to demonstrate and show you that the needle, or the thread just goes right through, but don't pull it all the way. This is a loose stitch rather than, you don't give it any tension or tug because you want to be able to easily pull it back out when you're done. Let's just make a couple more of these running stitches. And then when you do make the basting stitches, I'll mention this again when we get to that point, is that you'll want a contrasting color like a bright red or bright pink or orange that will contrast with the black. And that way you'll be able to see the basting stitches very easily and be able to remove them easily when the time comes. So just do this one more time. See, I'll push it through with my thimble and pull it through. The other thing to watch anytime we make a stitch is to not pull so hard that the thread comes out. Because while threading a needle isn't hard, it can sometimes be a headache because the thread just argues with you sometimes. It doesn't want to quite go into the needle. So that's kind of a important one to remember. So there we go. Let me just park this needle here. All right. And now we're going to go on to what is called in your Jukai manual, the step stitch. Now in period sewing and other fabric construction, this stitch would be called a spaced back stitch, but we'll be calling it a step stitch for our purposes because that will be in alignment with what you're reading in the Jukai manual. So when we're making this step stitch, this will be how we join the vast majority of the Rakusu, stitching the straps together. When we get to the face, that will be how we'll join those strips together and so on. There are a few other stitches that we'll be using, but this is really the major one. So we'll spend a little time with this and then we'll actually measure and start working on our one of the straps. I'll demonstrate this and then we'll talk a little bit about the process for starting the construction of your rakusu, because I would like to recommend something for you. Now, just made a knot here. And actually, let me do that again. Let me just cut that guy off down here. Let me do that again while I'm talking rather than, or not talking. So you can, this thick yarn is pretty easy to just loop around like this, and then we just need that knot. Or you can twist it around your finger and roll it off your finger and give it a tug, and that will create a knot as well. So in this case, it's just for demonstration, but you really wouldn't want such a monster knot there. So what we'll do next is to draw a nice straight line. And you'll be doing this for joining your strips or creating the seam lines. Just do that right in the middle. Find the needle, put my thimble back on, and we will start at the beginning here and just put our knot right there. And that's where the sewing line will begin. Now, I'm going to stitch backward just for one stitch and just forward just a little bit. Okay. And here's where I'm going to actually give it a little tug, because I want to set that knot and I want to set this stitch so that there won't be any risk of it coming out. Because sometimes the knot, maybe if the knot isn't very strong, it may unfurl and slide out from you. We don't want any wardrobe malfunctions. All right, so now we have our first stitch, and we're going to go right back at the beginning there. And this would be what would technically be a back stitch, but we're going to use this as a starting point for our stitches. So with looking at that, going right back to the beginning of this little stitch where we had the knot, then I'm going to go forward and leave a little gap here. All right, I'll push that through. Now, a spaced back stitch can be done as very tiny little dots close together or a little bit apart. So for our step stitch, it's especially with seams that are going to be hidden, it's perfectly fine to have these spaces pretty wide apart. A step stitch or spaced back stitch, or in Victorian times is called the pick stitch. And you'll know that, like, if you ever see an antique garment, you'll see these tiny little dots like that as a decorative top stitching. In some traditions, in I think Rinzai Rakusus, you'll see that the pieces are outlined with these tiny little stitches. So these little step stitches or pick stitches can be decorative as well. For the first seams that we're going to make here, we're going to be doing this in a utilitarian fashion rather than a decorative one. And so when I can come back and take a little bite out of the fabric, just like that, and then come in and leave a nice gap, pull this in and give it a little tug. And that's the important part about conditioning your thread or having good quality thread. So you can give these that little tug so that the seams stay firm, and yet it won't break or fray on you. So let's just do a few more of these. And left-handers, I didn't forget you. I'm not able to demonstrate with my left hand. I tried, but I have linked to a demonstration video of a young lady who is doing this demonstration of this stitch, and she includes how to do it left-handed. So I didn't forget you. All right. But when you're taking a look at your stitching, I want to emphasize again about put your arms on the table and have a nice posture, shoulders down, just a little bit of a lean forward. That's where the raising one foot on a yoga brick or your footstool is very helpful to keep your back in alignment. So as I'm stitching, I can hold the fabric with my left hand or non-dominant hand, and then take the needle and push that through with my dominant hand. And then you see how I'm holding the fabric together with my hand to make sure it's nice and secure. All right, so, and this way I have very little movement of this hand. I'm not like trying to squinch it, and I'm not trying to do this kind of motion. Not, rocky waves. We're going to flow as a river instead. So as I take these little bites to make those little stitches, then I will hold the fabric gently and then give a little push and pull the thread all the way through. So let me try. I'm going to try to see if my camera will cooperate with me here with with the focus and holding it up close. Now, don't do this in real life. Don't hold your fabric up in the air, which you'll get really tired really quick. But just so you can see, here's our blue line, and here's where I'm going to go in. All right, and that'll be my little step stitch, my little pick stitch. And I'm going to go through like that. And I'm going to pull that on through. Whoop. So you can see it almost wanted to like loop around, and sometimes that'll happen. The thread might feel like it's twisting around a little bit. So you're going to be sure that you keep your threads nice and straight. All right. So let's try one more here closer to the camera. We'll go in and through. And try to hold it a little straighter for you. And then give it a nice little bit of a tug, and then straighten out the fabric. Okay. So on the back side, you're going to see this really nice row of stitching. So with a back stitch, which is these little stitches are closer together, that's actually where the man who invented the automated, the sewing machine got the idea. That's what it's based on. So he was, cheating, cheating off of whatever seamstress was there. So again, we're going to always sew with our arms on the table, our back nice and straight, have a good posture. Because one of the things too is that as we're stitching, this is a meditation. And to be able to have a relaxed posture, we're going to take a breath with each stitch, perhaps. You might have a gatha that you like to say as you take each stitch. Some people will take each stitch. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Thich Nhat Hanh has many gathas that he uses. I often will use, I have arrived, I am home. And so there are a number of different ways to keep this as a meditative practice. And I think one of a really great way to do that is to keep your arms relaxed and have that nice posture where you're going to sew in a parallel to your body. And like I said, go as a river as we sew. All righty, just take one last nice little stitch. Okay. All right, so when you try this yourself, or in the comments, if you're like, oh gosh, I don't understand what that was, what happened there, please do ask questions in the comments or email me at sewingsangha@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to coordinate a one-on-one Zoom session with you if that will be helpful. And we'll make sure that you understand how to do this basic stitch, because you'll be using it a lot as you construct your rakusu. I'll also be leaving some links to different folks who have stitch demonstrations. Because it's like anything else with a teacher that, sometimes a teacher will be, perfect for 2 or 3 people. And then the fourth person says, I don't get it. And another demonstration or another person's explanation will click and it's like, oh yeah, now I get it. So many different teachers are available for you to be able to learn from. So I'll link to some of those in the description below so that you can have the best possible result for your stitching. All right, so let's park this guy over here. And so exciting is our first construction for our rakusu. And I don't know about you, but so exciting. Because now you've had all of the preliminaries, you've made sure everything is in place, you have all of your supplies, you know how to do the step stitch. And now it's time to put the pieces together. Now, I want to suggest something. In a lot of people, I think, get excited about getting started and start immediately putting the face together. And that's the sexy part. That's the exciting part to put those strips and the tucks and woo, that's exciting. But if you're new to hand sewing, if you've never pieced a quilt together, any of those kinds of things, I'm really concerned that it's too much. And I think that's where a lot of people feel very daunted by creating the rakusu, that they try those stitches and try to put those things together and they can't get them to quite line up. And I do have a couple of suggestions as we get there for how to line up those the pieces and parts, because it's a challenge a little bit. But to be able to take your strap piece, because you have two straps that are 4.5 inches by 40, between 42 and 44, depending on your height. And if you're over 6 feet tall, you'll want 44 inches. And for the rest of us, we'll have the 42 inches. So this nice long strip needs to be joined and needs to be joined by a step stitch. So if you start with these strips, your shoulder straps, this will be, what you go put it around your neck with. This will be a way for you to really start learning that step stitch. You'll develop muscle memory. It's a nice meditation to sit and just gently do that step stitch and feel like you're making progress. And I think that that's a really good way to develop your confidence in being able to continue doing the rakusu pieces. So again, my recommendation is to start constructing the straps and sew these together. And then we'll be working on the face and the frame for the face and all of the extras that go with that. And then that's when, because that is when the rakusu really begins to take shape as a rakusu. So when you're taking a look at your straps, this long, narrow strip that you have, and it's interesting too. I'm trying to always say that the strips that we cut, and it's an interesting thing with Japanese fabric garment construction. When you look at kimono or other the juban, the jinbai, all these different constructed pieces, they're actually strips of fabric. If you looked at the construction of a kimono, you'd figure out that, oh, wow, it's strips of fabric that are then joined. And some of them are joined almost with just basting, because then they're easily taken apart for washing. And if you saw it deconstructed, it would be strips of fabric that they can wash and then reconstruct by using that running stitch or even the space back stitch. So that it makes sense then that our rakusu is composed entirely of strips. So that's kind of a little bit of a garment history. So what we'll be doing then is folding this strip in half. I've got you can see where I used a Sharpie marker to mark this and that you won't be doing that. So, it'll be a little bit, and actually I want to make sure that's on the outside. So when we turn this inside out, that mark won't show. So no problem there. So I take the 4.5-inch wide by 42-inch long, and I'm going to fold it in half. All right. Now you have a choice, and a couple of, let me move these guys over here so I don't get them tangled up. And what you have a choice for is, if you like, you can come along and pin this together. Now, I also have an alternate for you, and I really like this particular alternate. And you can pin things this way or that way, whichever you like or have done in the past. But I really like taking these little clips, because I'm a little klutzy sometimes, And I find that I will bump into the pins and stick myself. So I really like these pins, these little clips. There we go. So I'll do about half of it here. Now this is actually where you're going to discover if you've had a nice straight of grain when you cut the strip. Because if you were off kilter and have a bit of a bias, it's not going to want to lay straight. It's going to try to bunch up like this and make a little bump. And it's like you try to straighten, it won't straighten. And that's because it's not straight on the grain. So if you find that to be the case, then you might want to do another strip while you're at it. So that would be an important consideration. All right, so one of the things then we want to do is make sure that we have our seam allowance. And we're going to make a 1/2 inch seam allowance by taking this nice seam allowance tool and looking at, and I always like to confirm my measurements by using this little the little tape measure here that can help me make sure that I have the right measurement along the way. All right, so I'm going to try him up like this. Yeah, I need to shorten this up a little bit. So I'm going to put this guy at the top of the fabric. Just going to check and see how I'm doing here. Let's start at the 1 instead of. There we go. Let me double check because it's hard to see. There we go. Yeah, that's correct. So forgive me here because I have our little downward facing camera here might get in the way a little bit. So what I can do is just go along and keep this part of the ruler in alignment with the top of the fabric, and then make lines with the tailor's chalk or pencil or whatever little sliver of soap, whichever was working for you. Right. Okay, and that's actually another thing that happens with the pins. Sometimes the pin will get in the way and you be tempted to just go up and over it. Well, the clips can just be unclipped and moved over, which is great. Okay. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is, in our next episode, I'll be taking this long strip and just simply sewing it. And the whole video will be actually kind of nothing but me stitching this strip. And that way, and I think that for some folks, it's a very, very helpful thing to kind of have that body doubling, if you will. There's some of the folks who do cleaning videos and different things will, oops, here we go. And they will have what's called body doubling, where they'll video themselves cleaning their house. And you can put that on in the phone or the iPad or whatever, and then clean along with them. And it almost just feels like you have a friend there helping you out, And I think that with our stitching, that can be really helpful as well. Just set aside some time and then and put on the video like that and like this and just stitch along with me. And I won't be talking or explaining any, details, but just simply to stitch right along with me so that, you'll have company as you do that. Right. So Um, let's get started with that and put the thimble on. And I have, and I do have some pearl cotton rather than the thread that we would be using. So hopefully you can see that a little bit better. You can see where I've marked the seam allowance all along here. And I'm going to do the same process that we did before of doing a step stitch to attach this entire row. Oops. And that's what happens when you forget to make a knot. Let's make a knot. Okay, didn't want to cooperate because this is, I think, 3-ply, and it's a little harder to make the knot in the way the thread would. For our purposes, there we go, that will work. All right, so I'm going to come in and there we go. I'm going to start us off here. And like I said, make a back stitch, in this case, a little bit bigger, and come out on the front. Get that nice tug. Make sure he'll stay put. And then I'm going to come back and right where I first entered the needle and this thread, and then I'm going to come back out along the line. I can push with my thumb. Be careful and not do that. I guess this is the proof of life video, right? That I just poked myself with the needle. So we're not going to do that. We're going to have not. See, that's when it happens when you don't have good posture. I was holding this up like this. So I'm going to relax and hold my hands and arms at rest and relaxed, and start that process of making these nice stitches, and to go as a river as we go along this line of fabric. If you pick up little extra threads, that's okay, just pull them out. So let me see if I can pull this up a little bit. And for a seam, that is perfectly fine to be a little further apart. As when we do the face, we graduate to doing the face and the tiny little pieces, we may find ourselves using the stitches closer together so that we won't risk them making puckering or making a gap. But no worries with this. This will be turned inside out. You won't see any of these stitches or any of these marks. So as you're going along, no worries if you find yourself maybe getting the threads tangled a little bit, or feel like, oh, they're not evenly spaced. That's what this exercise is for, doing the long strap and then doing the second one. And that will really, by the time you've finished both long straps, I think you'll find that you are ready to go, that you're going to feel very comfortable doing this, the step stitch. So go through, take a little bite of the fabric, a nice little tug. And I have actually come a little longer thread than I should have. There's kind of a joke among embroidery people that you should be pulling about the length of your arm when you before you thread. When you're threading your needle, you don't want to have too long or too short. And for those of us who do hand sewing, sometimes the length of our arm becomes like 2-3 times the length of our arm, and then we're way out here. So want to make sure that you have the thread is about the length of your arm, and you don't have too much pulling to do, and so that you can keep your hands in that neutral position and calm and relaxed. Let's do a few more. You'll get into a nice rhythm as you do this. And as you think about the meditation that perhaps you'd like to repeat to yourself, or just simply breathing along with this, to be thinking about the Dharma, thinking about our precepts, thinking about the way that we live in this world, and seeing this as an embodied practice of that, that we wear the Tathagata's teachings by creating and wearing this lovely rakusu. So think about we're making a little friend here, and really a priceless kind of thing that we're making. That's a once in a lifetime thing. Really, you will be enjoying making. I hope enjoying this, putting this together with joy and with ease, and seeing this as part of your meditation practice. Right. So let's take a closer look if we can. And you can see where these little stitches are just lined right up along this blue line that we made to mark our seam allowance. And makes a really nice straight line. So that's where our nice seam will be. And when we turn this inside out, then that will keep the seam straight for making the straps, so there won't be any gaps or any places where it'll pull apart. All right. So I hope that you enjoyed this lesson, and that you'll feel confident and comfortable in making your rakusu this way and starting the process. So thanks for listening. And if you have questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comments section. You can also subscribe to the channel, click on the notification bell so you'll learn when new content is released. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one.